Welcome back to video number 3 of topic number 1, the introduction to the Greater Reality Living course. Now, near the end of video number 2, I described two groups that make the goals for this course: Greater Reality Living, Heaven on Earth, practically attainable by the end of this decade, I believe. I first mentioned near-death experiencers and also shining light parents. Another group are those who have had a spiritually transformative experiences. If you love acronyms like me, you can call them STEers. Again, spiritually transformative experiences. I discussed this in article number 17 at soulproof.com. So these are ways that people awaken their hearts and minds, expand to understand more about the nature of reality, more about how life is set up. Triggers to that happening are diverse and support the idea that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Some people have it when the child is born, some when the child passes on, some people when they're in the middle of a war situation, hearing a beautiful note of music, or just all sorts of things that again help take you beyond what your brain is telling you about the nature of reality and help you see more. And then when you see more, when you go from looking at life through a tiny pinhole to even a silver dollar size, you go, aha, well, that explains a lot of things. So these people have spiritually transformative experiences, especially when they put this information to use and follow their inner calling. We've talked about identifying, fulfilling your highest purposes for being here, and I discussed that in article number 21 and have a audio program for that. Another group would be people who know about, participate in the Soul Phone project. We've talked about this a bit. You can learn more at the website soulphone.org. So this technology will do two things. First of all, allow accurate, reliable announcements that life after death has been scientifically proven. And the second thing is that public demonstrations of this technology, again, showing binary responses, reliable, accurate, fairly rapid, from post-material persons, will be shown to people around the world. Now, both these events we anticipate will happen next year, 2025. There is much to do to prepare for this. You can understand you only have one chance to make a first impression. There are many critics, many people who are atheists, believe there's no God, nihilists who believe there's no afterlife. So we want to have everything prepared to make the maximum impact and help as many people as possible on our planet. But we know that there will be a predictable paradigm shift when these two things happen. And it will be different for different people. Those who have a deep spiritual foundation will say, yeah, I knew this all along. Those who have no belief in an afterlife, that's a bunch of crap. Those who have very conservative or fundamentalist religious beliefs may think this work is of the devil because it doesn't align with their particular cult. You understand, by the way, there are over 10,000 different denominations and cults within Christianity alone. So some of these think their way is the only way. So anyway, we want to be optimally prepared for that, have our ducks in a row, so to speak. And you can learn a lot more about the Soul Phone project in the videos under topic number 9. Now, there are a number of organizations that have a similar mission, that is to help elevate consciousness and thereby improve our planet. And those are listed in the PDF resources, but they include groups like Humanity's Team, started by Neil Donald Walsh, and Steve Farrell is a big mover in that group now. So humanitiesteam.org, large organization with that kind of a goal. IONS, the Institute of Noetic Sciences, started by astronaut Edgar Mitchell, very powerful group, scientists like Dean Radin, PhD, involved in that. Dr. Joe Dispenza, who's a chiropractor like me, and his website is drjoedispenza.com. Very powerful program for shifting the way we think, involving neuroscience and dropping low energy old beliefs and what happened, and then being open to newer, higher, better. A lot of people have benefited from his work. The Academy for Advances in Post-Material Science, big name, the acronym's AAPS global.com is their website. So again, Academy for Advances in Post-Materialist Science. This was started by Gary Schwartz, PhD, Marjorie Woolacott, PhD, and neuroscientists and others. A large number of people, physicians, psychologists, university professors, scientists, whose working assumption is that consciousness is primary, that is, not just a temporary byproduct of the human brain. And amazing work they're doing, lectures, books, so be sure to check that out. A sister organization out of Scotland, the Galileo Commission, Eternia, I mentioned, eternia.org is their website. Gaia, which has many resources and TV shows, videos, and so on. The Shift Network, similarly. These are all very large organizations that have lots of people who are working toward this common goal, and that's why I have so much hope that we can reach this, especially when you get the big idea and share it with others and join forces. Put your piece of the puzzle in this seemingly unsolvable puzzle we call planet Earth. But when enough of the pieces come in place, we can see the solution. We can see the big picture. Another group that gives a lot of hope is what I call, quote, ordinary people. And you understand, nobody's really ordinary. We're all amazing souls. I mean, just for coming to Earth, let alone staying here. Tough place to be. For example, I recently read a story about a guy named Danny in Mississippi. He was a Vietnam vet. He had some PTSD, but got along pretty well. But then the body of his wife of 53 years died, and he was faced with depression, loneliness, looking at some of the things that happened in his life. So he decided he was going to become a fix-it man for free for people in his community. They call him the honeydew dude, and he said he feels much better after doing this service, and he's made so many new friends, met so many wonderful people. So that's a beautiful example of how service to others is a potent path toward improving your own life and then collectively our planet. Now there's widespread, as I'm sure you're aware, widespread discontent in the world right now, certainly in the U.S. The flip side of that, the blessing, the rest of the story is that creates more openness to change. People are ready for something different. And also, there's greater communication now. I mentioned earlier Latin church services. My dad grew up in a church that spoke Latin, and I said, "What was that like, Dad?" And he said, "Well, you just kind of sat there and listened and hoped it was good what they were saying, because nobody had any idea." Can you imagine that? And now look at the almost instantaneous and global information available. However, it's important to discern facts from falsehoods. Some people don't pay much attention to, is there any evidence behind what is said or written about or claimed? Dr. Schwartz wrote a foundational book about that called extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, which was a statement by Carl Sagan, PhD. So it's really important to make those points because, again, when the Soul Phone Project claims are made, scientific proof of life after death, reliable communication technology with post-material persons, some people say, oh, that's fake. But if you look at the data, you look at the research, then you have to be a totally closed-minded skeptic to not at least seriously consider it. Another wonderful piece of hope for this happening in our lifetime is what we call the great news, having assembled and then sharing that with many people. So you can see the list of the great news in article number 19 at soulproof.com, and I'll be discussing it in great detail in the video for topic number 2 in this course. But the great news, just remember that as this information about the nature of reality, the big picture of life gets out, and again, it's all wonderful news. More people will awaken to, oh my gosh, I don't have to be afraid. And yes, I am with the one and part of Source. Yes, I have special gifts to share. No, death is not an end. Yes, I will see my loved ones again. And all that wonderful news, that's the kind of thing that can energize people, help them remember who they are, why they're here, who walks beside them, etc. Another source of hope is that it's the nature of humans to remember their source, kind of like prodigal son. After a while in the far country, you come back home. One of my spiritual teachers, Ram Dass, likened it as we're like moths flying toward a light, just we're attracted to it. So even the most dark and seemingly horrible criminals, evildoers, are at their essence beings of light. Yeah, something went wrong, and that can differ in different cases. But again, their inner nature is beings of light, and they remember their source, and they want to get back to it. And there are all sorts of examples of people who committed horrible crimes, mistreatment to others, who then made a transformation. So more hope. And the last one is, and this is the 11th one, this holistic program, Greater Reality Living Course. So I've mentioned the big picture of life. That's the name of a book we wrote for children ages 10 through 16, we being Dr. Gary Schwartz and myself, and Kata Mapes, who has dual master degrees in childhood education and counseling. So you can read article number 68 that helps you understand more about the true nature of reality and helps you realize that the seeming challenges in your life can be your greatest blessings when you look at things differently, when you understand more about what's really going on here in life. Another point I want to make in this introduction as we wrap it up is that helping yourself, others, and making our world a better place is an incremental process. Don't try to do everything overnight. Don't get discouraged if you don't have results in 24 hours. It's a graduated, incremental process. So thank you in advance for sharing this course with others, especially those target groups of ours, people who are grieving loved ones, family, friends, and pets who have passed on, people who fear their own bodily death, again, a very common fear, people who are struggling with a loved one's suicide. That can be especially difficult, and you can see article number 4 that discusses that more. People are in the process of their body dying. Those who are suffering with failed relationships, physical and or mental illness, imbalances, broken dreams, financial loss, lack of purpose, have addicted family and friends, Hello, I think that covers everyone. I know I've had a couple of those. People who are contemplating suicide, and I think that's article number 5 at soulproof.com. Those who want to enjoy greater relationships with their post-material loved ones now, discuss this in article number 9. Those who are wrestling with past cultural, educational, and or religious teachings that don't make sense to them now. And boy, I hear from so many people who wrestle with that as they learn more about life, getting rid of the old, but keeping the good in it. Any of these teachings have good, so don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Another target groups, those who are searching for sensible answers to their biggest questions and looking for holistic solutions for their greatest challenges. Those who desire to enjoy the greatest life they have envisioned, and those who want to help others and make the world a better place. Now, there are a number of free resources at my website, soulproof.com. First of all, articles, that's under /articles. Radio shows, I interviewed people like Wayne Dyer and Brian Weiss, Raymond Moody, Anita Moorjani, Carolyn Mace. Some of the wisest people about consciousness and conscious living. And you can listen to about 25 of those free at soulproof.com/radio. Free newsletters, sign up at that website. Also, I have inexpensive books, audio programs, the Soul Proof documentary film, and counseling sessions. And you can learn more about those at soulproof.com/shop. Now, if you can't afford the books and audio programs, email me at mark@soulproof.com and we'll send you free digital versions of that. I want everyone on the planet to be able to afford these. They're like $15 each. But even so, that's a lot of money for some people. So if you truly can't afford them, let me know and we'll get those to you. When you use the audio techniques, again, that some use special breathing techniques, most of them use deep relaxation / hypnosis with guided imagery. After you've listened to the introductory track a couple times and tried them a couple times, if you're having questions or problems, again, email me, mark@soulproof.com. My answers will be short and to the point, but resource rich. I hear from many people every day, and I have to keep it short. It's the only way I can do this. The articles I recommend you read before listening to the videos for the next topic, and the titles and article numbers are listed in the PDF, included article number 11, Expanding Your View of Life. 13, What is God Really Like? 14, Heaven and Hell, What Are They Really? 15, The Nature of Humans. 17, Spiritually Transformative Experiences. 19, The Great News. Number 70, Holistic Breathing Technique, which is the audio program I'll be talking about in a bit for this topic. 72, Greater Reality Living. 76, 12 Experiences, Many Lessons. 82, Journeying from Deeply Grieving to Shining Light. 107, What is the Afterlife Like? 116, Terms for Optimally Living on Earth and Beyond. And number 118, Who and What Are You Really? So dive in and enjoy. Wonderful articles. I'm blown away by them, and I wrote them. And then also I recommend that you start using the holistic breathing technique. This is free for people paying for this course through, or using this course through different organizations. And again, that's available under shop. It's a $15 audio because so many people have needless fears, old wounds, and stuck emotions, blocks. that keep them from understanding, even considering what we're talking about here. So this 45 minutes of deep, noisy diaphragmatic breathing is a great way to release all of that, to reset, and then start looking at things more clearly. Now, to make the goals of this course seem more achievable, I like to share some slides of 5 people who have inspired me. They're heroes, really, when you hear their stories. And one of the obvious takeaways is if they can do it, you can do it. And this first person's Betty Guagdano. She, in the left, you can see, was really suffering. Her parents both died by suicide, or they chose suicide. They didn't die, but their bodies did when she was 23. And she said she had to numb the pain, and quickly drugs became her new parents. So she was a heroin addict. By her own admission, and she shares it publicly, she was a sex worker and she was a devout atheist. She had a near death or near death like experience, and look at her now. And she works for IANS, the International Association for Near Death Studies, has a wonderful blog. She interviewed me a couple weeks ago. This is the kind of person that gives me hope for our world. Tremendous person, one of the wisest people I've ever talked to. And all this transformation was 5 years ago. She's a coach for others. Somebody wants to make a turnaround. So you can contact her. Her contact information is in the PDF for resources. Next, this is Beth and Rick Olson with their 2 little children. I interviewed them about a month ago in the Shining Light Parents. They were driving and a drunk driver hit them on the side going 80 miles an hour and killed both of their children. Rick and Beth should have died, but didn't, in part because there were doctors right behind them in a car. There was an ambulance like a block behind them and saved them. And you know, they're 2 children. They've had 3 children since, but look at these little precious kids, again, who are really evolved souls who probably volunteered to come in part so I could tell this story. And I'm getting choked up by this, which is one of my signs that this is important stuff to share. So at that point, as we say in Helping Parents Heal, the parents could become better or bitter, and they decided to become better. They decided they were going to be able to contact their children. They were going to find the silver linings to this, and they both became shamans, and they've helped so many people. They'll be speaking at our 3rd national or international conference this summer in Phoenix. Amazing people. So here they are now, and you hear their story, and it's just so moving. First of all, when I asked them about, do you believe there's a meaning and a timing to how your kids passed? They said, oh, without a doubt. They said, when we look back, we see all the ways that could have not happened. For example, something spilled on Beth's shirt, and they stopped so she could clean it up. Well, if that hadn't happened, they wouldn't have been in that spot at that moment. There was a car accident and some road construction, so that delayed their progress. And they said, really, so many things had to come together for things to unfold as they did. By the way, that very lesson is portrayed very well in the movie The Curious Case of Benjamin Buttons, starring Brad Pitt and others. And it shows how so many things had to come together and helps us accept the timing and the meaning, even from what seems so senseless tragedies from our limited earthly perspective. I asked them if they had been able to, well, first of all, here's one for you. The The ambulance that saved them uh, was on its way to help a battered woman who was beaten by her drunk husband, and that was the drunk who wrecked into their car. I mean, you just say, okay, this is just too much of an interconnection. So I asked, have you been able to forgive, at least in your heart, this man? And they said, it's amazing you would ask. I said, because just last month, now all this happened, um, sorry, maybe 17 years ago. And in their state, when there's a fatality due by a drunk driver, that's considered murder. And so they were not allowed any information about this person. He served, I think, 14 years in prison, so where he was, when he got out, etc. However, one day a letter from the courts arrived at their house describing an update on this person who had since become a Lutheran minister who was living in another state, and information, they weren't supposed to receive this. It was kind of a miracle. They decided to travel several states and meet this man with the goal of expressing forgiveness, which they did, but they said to their surprise, they got much more out of it than they think he did. It was just a win-win for everybody. So again, an amazing example. If these people can do it, you can do it. Many of us can do it, and we can turn this world around. Next, Zia Boyu, and I apologize for mispronouncing that, Chinese. You notice he has two prostheses, a double amputee. He was a mountain climber from China, and when he was 26, he was attempting to climb a high mountain, got severe frostbite, and lost both his legs. But he didn't give up, and he climbed a number of peaks afterwards. On his fifth attempt at age 70, he climbed Mount Everest. Oh my God. And he said, I'm here to demonstrate to people what is possible, what we're all capable. I mean, these are the kinds of stories that just inspire me so much, and I hope give you hope as well. There's a little guy we described in our book, Greater Reality Living, Joshua Dixon. This happy young man. He was attacked by two pit bulls in the neighborhood, and the doctor said his face was basically torn off. And so close your eyes. You don't like to look at graphic pictures, but this next picture is after he'd had, and again, I've lost track of the number. It was a huge number, like 30 or more surgeries, but still, this is what he looked like. However, he turned it into a blessing. He became a photographer, went to art school in Maine. Again, Joshua Dixon. You can visit his website. Amazing young man. He is able to see and capture images that some people wouldn't notice. He was interviewed and asked, if you could go back before you were mauled, would you change that if you could? And he said, I would not. He said, I've met so many wonderful people, and I've learned so much and grown in ways that I wouldn't have if that hadn't happened. So that's what Native Americans call Strong as a Bear, which is a song we'll be singing in a future topic, a future experiential session. Strong as a bear, and he's still out there touching and helping others. And the last one I want to share is Emma Niagu, who her family was from Romania. She had osteosarcoma, cancer of the bone in her right leg, and eventually had to have it amputated at age, I think, 11. Her whole life was dance and ballet. And even after the amputation, she returned to that. She went on to be selected and be on Romania's Got Talent. And there's a link in the PDF resources a short video of her performing. I don't think there was a dry in the place, again, demonstrating what is possible. And here she is, just so strong. She passed 5 months after being on Romania's Got Talent at age 15. But her mom has continued to raise funds for pediatric cancer research and treatment. And so many people have read about her, watched the videos, and so on. So you basically have to decide, because it's your worldview. Was this a horrible, senseless tragedy, a reason to say there is no God and life is chaotic or cruel? Or is this an advanced soul who came here just for a while, didn't really have to have an earthly experience, go through all the classes like most of us, who is here to shine brightly, touch a huge number of people in ways she wouldn't have been able to otherwise with a easier, more normal life? And look at the impact. So think on these things. So this is the end of topic number 1, the introduction to the course, Greater Reality Living, 5 Keys to Knowing Who You Really Are, Creating the Greatest Life You Have Envisioned, Sharing Your Greatest Gifts, and Making Our World a Better Place. Let it shine.